Good morning. Welcome to Talk HR UK. I'm Simon Geere, and when I'm not having interesting podcasts with people in the HR industry, I'm helping HR directors, MDs and CEOs find the best HR talent in the southeast of the UK. Now, today's podcast is slightly different. I'm not talking to a dyed-in-the-wool HR professional. I'm talking to Ed Johnson, who's the CEO at Pushfar. Now, Ed has set up his own organisation, is an entrepreneurial individual who was recommended to me by someone, an HR director in my network actually, and he's here today to tell us all about his organisation and the concept of mentoring really, and which is something very close to all HR professionals' hearts, and how he's helping modernise the concept of mentoring for the industry on an international basis, basically. So, Ed, welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Good to have you. Thank you. So, start off with tell us a little bit about your background. How did where have you come from, and how did you get to where you are today?
Absolutely, yeah. So my background is very much tech and marketing focused rather than HR, but it's what led me to where I'm at now in terms of mentoring. So I started working for a small startup company doing digital marketing, and then progressed to a large company with 130,000 employees, again in tech, and then sort of moved around a bit in the tech space. And about 3 years ago, I was looking for a mentor myself. I realized that actually I needed a bit of direction in my career. I would like to have spoken to someone, or I wanted to speak to someone who was in digital marketing space in terms of talking about what the next steps were in my career. And pretty quickly realized that actually it wasn't that straightforward finding a mentor. Where do you go to find a mentor? If you've got a big network, then you can sort of start contacting people and potentially asking who might be available. But again, a bit of a shot in the dark. You don't know who's willing to mentor or who's got the capacity all the time. So started to look at developing Pushfar, which was originally as a concept just about bringing mentors and mentees together on an open marketplace where people can volunteer to mentor other people. At the same time, people can look for and find mentors. And quickly it progressed into a business that has now two sides to it. So we have the open network where individuals can sign up as mentors and mentees and find their own mentoring relationships. And then we also license that technology now into organizations to help them to streamline mentoring schemes, because we quickly, myself and my co-founder, realized that organizations were often running a mentoring scheme or program for their employees, but actually there was a bit of a challenge around the administration of it, the reporting on it, the understanding what's actually going on within it. And as great as Excel spreadsheets are, they don't seem to be the most efficient way of doing mentoring. So we started to develop it to help organizations too, which is where we're at now.
Fantastic. Yeah. So the idea came to you because you needed a mentor, basically, and didn't know where to turn. And you're quite right. I mean, the modern, dare I say it now as an old man, the younger generation, the first place they will look is online and see if there is a platform out there. And clearly there wasn't. So why mentoring itself? And what do you think the benefits of mentoring are? Why were you looking for a mentor?
So a couple of reasons, I suppose, that I was looking personally for a mentor, and then I'll go into the benefits more generally in a minute. But for me, the benefits were, the reasons for me looking for a mentor were that first and foremost, I wanted some direction in my career. I was head of digital for a .com company. There were sort of 60 employees in the company, but there was no one really within the company who had experience in sort of a level above me in my career. So I wanted to talk to someone who had, been head of digital in a company with 250 people, for example, or a larger organization, to understand what journeys that they'd gone through to get to where they were, and how to progress my career effectively. The second thing for me was the accountability element to having a mentor. So actually having someone who I could talk to about the objectives and goals that I had each month, what I'd achieved in the previous month, and actually holding me accountable, because I felt like I was going to meet them, and I wanted to tell them good news stories about what I'd achieved in the past month. And they weren't necessarily going to be holding me accountable in that they weren't going to be saying, why haven't you done this or why haven't you done that? But subconsciously, I think when you do get into a mentoring relationship, you do want to achieve things, you do want to set goals, and you do want to talk. And when you share your goals and objectives with other people, it becomes there's more pressure on you to actually achieve them. It's like that if you tell everyone in the office that you're going to run a marathon, the pressure is suddenly there because you've said it that you're going to do it. So exactly. So for me, those were the two main reasons for me looking at a mentor: direction in my career and also accountability. In general, the benefits to mentoring, though, as well as those, of course, there are things like for individuals, it's understanding more about an organization. So if you're in part of a larger organization, you may only know about your own department, but actually if you have a mentor in a different department, you can start to understand more about the business as a whole. And actually it may then take you down a route of applying for different jobs within the organization that you didn't even realize that existed in the past. Of course, career progression in general. And then you've now got things where mentoring is really benefiting diversity and inclusion, and how that all impacts that, and educating people on certain challenges that individuals are facing. So those are kind of the key benefits, I suppose. But yeah, mentoring really does affect career progression in general.
Well, it does, and it's a huge thing, and it's still, I have to admit, I mean, I've worked in the HR market, I suppose, in the industry for nigh on 20 years now, and it still isn't spoken about in a wildly formal perspective. It doesn't feature on every CV we see. Every organization doesn't have a scheme. So it's a great idea. I can see what gave you the idea for the organization, partly your own drive for a mentor, and partly recognizing that it's a hard thing to run, particularly in a very large business. Is that where the idea came from in terms of creating the platform itself?
Yeah, absolutely. For organizations, we realized pretty quickly that actually even a matching process itself is a nightmare. So if you have 50 employees that you want to be involved in a mentoring relationship, that's 25 pairs. You've got to try and work out who the best partnerships are, or who the best mentoring relationships are, how they fit together. You'll then end up matching them, sending them all emails saying they're matched. And then 9 times out of 10, you'll probably get at least 1 or 2 people saying, actually, I want to change. I want to switch my mentor or mentee. And that's only, we're only talking about 50 people there. If you then look at mentoring in an organization that's got thousands or tens of thousands of employees or hundreds of thousands of employees, actually, how do you do that at scale? And that's only the matching piece that we're talking about. Once people are matched, organizations we found were struggling with then 2 sides of things: the engagement piece. So once people were in mentoring relationships, they'd always start on a real high. They'd be really engaged. It would be fantastic. They'd have their first meeting. Brilliant. You talk to them 3 months down the line and say, how's it going? And they say, oh, actually, I probably should schedule my next meeting. And it's not that they didn't want it. It's just we're all busy. It's easy to forget things. And they didn't have that nudge or reminder saying you should probably schedule your next meeting. So again, using our platform to send out those reminders and help people stay engaged with mentoring was important. And then the final piece, the visibility. So actually, organizations were matching people, but then really had no visibility over how often they were meeting, how engaged they were, whether they were even in the mentoring relationship anymore. So all of those things were problems that we were trying to fix with our technology, I suppose.
It's definitely, you're right. As you say, it's a bit of a logistical nightmare, and if the tech can automate it, make it a lot easier, then I agree that's a great thing. So, I mean, this is the bit that really interests me personally, because I've never started up my own business from scratch, but you obviously took these concepts and ideas and thought, right, how do I make this happen? So, tell us a little bit about the journey of the business. How did you start the business? How do you get mentors and mentees on board for the open program?
It's been an interesting journey so far. It continues to be every day. Every day is a bit different. It's fully transparent. It's terrifying at times, but I think for me, there was a clear need for this. I knew that I needed a mentor. I knew from speaking to other people that other people that I'd worked with, friends of mine, family members, that there were other people who were in need of this as well and looking for this too. The first step to it was doing that research, and I didn't go into a lot of detail with the research. Maybe I should have done, but it seems to have worked without. I think there are some individuals that start a business and will spend 6 to 8 months just doing research and planning, when actually they should just be, to a certain extent, they should just be doing and trying it out and seeing if it works or not. I think there's an element of research that needs to happen, but for me, it was getting. I got 10 people over around the kitchen table talking over breakfast one Saturday morning about, I just asked them lots of questions about their career progression and how you go about finding a mentor, what they thought mentoring was, and just some general questions which really painted a picture in my mind of what Pushfar should be like. And then halfway through that breakfast, I said, this is what I've come up with as a concept. What would that look like for you? And just getting all of their thoughts on that. And that really was sort of enough for me in terms of initial research. The execution part of it, because I come from a tech background myself, and had a few sort of friends and contacts in that space. I've worked directly with my co-founder on various projects beforehand. So I said to him, look, this is something I want to develop. Can you help? And he actually ended up quitting his job a couple of weeks later, and much to my horror at the time, because I hadn't even got investment, and
no
he
pressure,
was sort of expecting a salary pretty soon. And I was thinking, okay, right. But so, we were sort of halfway there, in that we had the means with which to develop the technology. It was then about convincing investors. The first couple of investors that we got on board were active or are active mentors themselves, so they saw the value of it too instantly. And I think when you're looking at investors for businesses, they certainly in sort of early stage seed rounds, they have to be interested in and invested in the concept, not just the business. So they got mentoring, which was really important. And then really, it was then a case of, once we developed the platform, just putting it out to market. And we ran a few Facebook ads saying, interested in becoming a mentor or mentoring other people, and are you looking for a mentor? There was some concern initially that we might have loads of mentees and not enough mentors, but fortunately it offset itself quite well. We were quite strategic in our ad campaigns as well. So we did run some ad campaigns targeting individuals who'd recently retired, who we sort of figured would probably have a bit more time on their hands, not to completely lose sight of what was going on in their industry. For them, mentoring was probably a good place to start. And it sort of evolved from that, and we sort of built critical mass quickly through that. And I think that just showed us straight away that because we were building up membership database so quickly, that actually there was a lot of interest there, which was a great indicator for us. And then from the company side of things, we were having conversations with HR directors 6 months before the technology had even been finished being developed. And that in itself told us that there was a lot of interest there. The fact that we were able to sit down with HR and people development directors and learning and development managers, and even have a meeting, was a good initial sign. It's sort of grown from there, I suppose.
That's amazing. So you had, as you say, you were sort of lining up potential paying customers, let's say, before you actually had it nailed down as a product. So that's the dream, really, isn't it? That's
yeah, exactly. And I had a feeling it would take quite a long time to get sign-off. Having worked at large organisations, the kind of the sign-off process from saying we want this to actually getting it signed off was quite a while. So that bought us time to kind of perfect the technology whilst we'd already sort of sold it to them, and then we went from there. It worked. It works, and they saw benefits straight away, which is great. We were fortunate in that.
Oh, great. So, as you say, you found something that the market needs, and that's fantastic. So conceptually then, because this is your field, so how is technology changing mentoring as a concept?
I think first and foremost, it's making it more accessible to everyone. So in the past, we've seen larger organizations who've run mentoring schemes that have been maybe reserved for want of a better phrase, a word, top talent or senior leadership, or even the 5% of people at the bottom who are struggling the most. They've needed a mentor, so they've been assigned a mentor. So you've got sort of the top 5% of an organization having mentoring or having access to mentoring, and the bottom 5% having access to mentoring. You've got the 90% in the middle that have seen no mentoring whatsoever. And it's mainly because the resource around running a mentoring program or scheme just hasn't been possible. It goes back to my earlier point about the matching process taking a long time, overseeing, educating people on mentoring. So actually technology has made that so much more accessible for everyone. If you want a mentor, you can now sign up to the platform. You can get involved with a mentoring scheme online. The second thing that it's done, as well as making it more accessible, is made it more efficient. So again, this goes back to the earlier point I made about engagement levels. Actually having technology reminding and nudging individuals that it's time for their next meeting, or they've got to set or complete a goal or provide feedback. The engagement is suddenly there so much more because of the technology helping and pushing people in the right direction and giving them that guidance that they need. And And the third thing that technology has done to transform mentoring is given more visibility and an understanding of and reporting of actually what's happening in terms of mentoring relationships. As I say, in the past, people have been matched. You haven't, an HR or learning and development manager hasn't really then understood or known, without sending out really long surveys, how often they've had meetings, how many goals they've set, how they've progressed, what the feedback looks like. With technology, you can do all of that. You can get the metrics, you can get the stats on engagement levels straight away. So those are the three main things I think that have really changed as a result of technology.
Excellent. So the automation of the process, and as you say, the MI at the end of it gives you an idea of how well it's working and what you need to change. So that's fantastic. No, I mean, it is the future of HR. It's all, social media is full of the automation of transactional HR, and this is a great illustration of that. So, so how does it work then? So if I'm, I don't know which part of the business I fit in. If I don't know if I'm the near retiring, or I'm certainly not the other end. I'm not young anymore. But if I was looking for a career mentor, or if I was willing to offer someone new to an organisation, how does it work?
So first thing I suppose to note is that the configuration changes from company to company. So some might have an approval process, others might make it still by invitation only. We try and make it more open. Assuming it's open to everyone, you would click on a link, maybe that's positioned within the intranet or an email that the L&D manager sent out. You'd have a registration form, and that can be streamlined with single sign-on. And one of the first questions is, would you like to be mentored or mentor others, or do both? So you can select to sign up as both. Depending on which option or options you select in terms of your mentoring preferences, we then ask you either what you can help with as a mentor and where you can add value, and which key areas specific to the business you feel you can be a good mentor in. And also your capacity as a mentor. So are you willing to mentor 2 or 3 people? Is it just the one person? And then if you're signing up as a mentee, we would then sort of flip those questions on their head and say, well, what are you looking for from a mentor? Where specifically are you looking for guidance? And you can check those check boxes as well. Then the algorithm suggests the sort of 5 best matches. So our platform says, okay, based on what you're looking for as a mentor, as a mentee, or based on what you're able to give back as a mentor, here are 5 proposed mentors or mentees for you. Again, looking at those keywords, those matching areas, the availability. Individuals can then request a mentor or a mentee. They can set the parameters around how long they'd like to be mentored for. So they can say, okay, I would like you to be my mentor for 3 months or 6 months, and I would like us to meet quarterly or monthly or bi-weekly during that process. Okay. The recipient of that invitation can then will then receive an email letting them know they've been requested. They can log in, accept that mentoring request, and then essentially you can start scheduling meetings directly through the platform. You can set your goals, get those reminders. You can keep notes of all of your mentoring meetings, and then for the administrators of the scheme, they log into their admin panel. They can see who's being matched. They can see how many meetings they've had, how many goals they've set. They can see any feedback that's being captured. So pretty straightforward process. Yeah, as I say, streamlining that whole process of mentoring.
And I guess it works globally. I mean, in this current era, you and I, we haven't met, have we? We've only met through this methodology, and
absolutely.
But mentoring works in that exact same way. These guys and girls don't need to be in a room together, do they? We can just, have these conversations openly, and it works through the platform. Yeah,
completely. It's certainly breaking down those barriers. You can have a mentor overseas. You can have a mentor in a different office in a different location in the UK, or as I say, overseas as well. Absolutely, and it really does help. It helps organisations as well in terms of opening up those channels of communication and a wider understanding of the business and what the business is doing. With these larger companies where you've got tens of thousands of employees, the chances are most of the employees aren't going to know what all the departments are doing or all job functions are. But actually, you don't have to have a mentor in your own industry or your own sector. You might have a really effective mentor who can teach you about management skills or presentation training, who's in a completely different sector of the business, but is fantastic at presentation training more generally. So it might be these soft skills mentoring. And so, opening that up to virtual mentoring across the globe is really something we're seeing a lot of, particularly at the moment.
I know you've done well. You've kind of answered my next question, which I'm always impressed by. But I was going to say, in terms of, and you also mentioned the very topical word algorithm. My son just got his GCSE results and it all worked out, so we're in a good place. But yeah, I mean, what are your views on who mentors who? How do you match people up? I mean, particularly, I suppose, as much the open program, because I mean, internally is one challenge. You've also got this open program, which is just people randomly saying they want mentoring. But how does that work? I'm always interested in that.
Yeah, really, really good question. I think in terms of the way it works, it's first and foremost, it's up to the mentor and the mentee who they wish to request or be requested by. So we've sort of put the onus back on the individuals because, and organisations don't have to do it this way. There are options in terms of configuration where they can, as administrators, still do the matching should they wish to on their side. So if they want that control, they can have that. But we would always recommend that the individuals are the ones requesting the mentor or the mentee. And there are kind of a couple of reasons for that. The first is actually, if you proactively selected your own mentor or mentee, you're probably going to be more engaged with that mentoring relationship in the first place. You're going to feel like you've gone out, you've found your mentor or mentee, you've requested them for a reason, therefore you're more engaged, which is half the battle in the first place. The second reason is you know what you want or need as a mentee more than anyone else, more than the learning development manager or the HR director. So you can find a person that you think is most appealing to you. In terms of the best matches, it really does depend. If you are looking for soft skills to develop, as I say, presentation training or understand more about industry insights or leadership skills or things like that, then finding someone who's good at that is obviously important. And you can get quite a good idea of how they are, usually in the first meeting. So we'd always recommend an introductory mentoring meeting to sort of make sure it's the right match. As wonderful as technology and algorithms are, they're never going to be perfect 100% of the time. If we could match people up perfectly every time, we'd probably be in the dating game rather than the mentoring game. But seeing as they can't do it perfectly either, actually, we know that there are never going to be 100% accurate matches. And that's part of the reason we suggest the 5 best matches to an individual. We never say this is your best, this is your match. We say here are 5 people, check out their profiles, see what you're looking for, and request someone accordingly, and then have that introductory meeting. It's really important to have that introductory meeting. Make sure you get on, make sure that your expectations are aligned, and that everyone understands, that both parties understand what those expectations are. So it's about figuring that out, I would say, and that's really the important thing. But for individuals to be able to request their own mentors or mentees, I think is the most important thing when it comes to that matching.
So it's led by the people who are looking for a mentor. That makes perfect sense, actually. So so you've created this, as you said, you already had some interest before it was created. How's it going? I suppose, what's been the response from the market so far? I mean, and again, I suppose it's 2 prongs to that question. One, from the corporate revenue generating perspective for yourselves, and then secondly, the open network. What kind of volumes are we talking about?
Yeah, so it seems to be going remarkably well, which I'm always hesitant to shout about too loudly, but it's good that it is. At the moment, we're just shy of 30,000 people signed up on our open network. So that's in just shy of 20 months, so just over a year and a half. So it seems to be going well. People want mentoring, they want access to mentors and mentees. People want to mentor other people, which is fantastic, which is phenomenal. And then on the business side of things, where we sort of generate the revenue, we're almost in a position where we're at kind of break even now, which again, for less than 2 years is sort of, we think is quite good for a startup, which is exciting. And we've seen, particularly in the last year, but particularly in the last 6 months with the pandemic as well, really strong interest in mentoring, and really strong interest in how organizations can help to engage employees in remote working and help to sustain that, as I say, engagement, but also looking at how organizations can keep that knowledge transfer going when people aren't in an office environment. And one of the ways is through mentoring. So actually, if you can set up a scheme and encourage that collaborative learning culture really quickly, that's a sort of a quick win. And we're in a position now which means that we're seeing some pretty large organizations and some sort of FTSE 100 and FTSE 250 companies approaching us and contacting us, asking for a demo, which is a really lovely position to be in. We're doing a lot in terms of sales outreach too, of course, but actually every time we get an inquiry from a large organization, it's kind of a tick in the box of validation for us that they've gone out and found us. And some of our clients have recommended us to other clients of ours that have signed up since. So again, we're seeing, overall, it seems to be going quite well, which is good.
Well, and you're in an HR-esque field, and if one thing I've learned over this period I've been with Alexander Lloyd, They love to talk, they love to network, they love to recommend. Do you know what I mean?
Perfect.
If something's going well, you know, the HR market will happily, I mean, I see it every day on LinkedIn, you know, people are getting jobs for each other, they're finding, you know, all kinds of skill support. So yeah, I think you're in a good market for that. I wanted to ask you, so with the corporate business, as you said, you're getting to a point where you're breaking even, which is brilliant at this early stage of the company's life. Are there any patterns? I mean, I'm not asking you to give away the company secrets here, but I'm curious, are there any market trends as to who's in, you know, who's led the field in getting you on board? Is it a particular sector or geography or size of business, or is it pretty diverse?
Do you know what? It's pretty diverse. And I know that sort of seems like a cop-out answer, but it's genuinely the truth. And I'm personally quite delighted by that, because I think that shows that just how much interest there is in mentoring overall, and I think how relevant it is overall. It puts us in a strong position as a business too, because actually we do have a wide network, a wide field of organisations. The finance and insurance sector seems to be quite popular with us at the moment, which is great. So we've got a few sort of financial clients signed up. And the other one that's quite popular, which is sort of probably unsurprising, is the education sector. So the idea, you know, they all run kind of mentoring schemes for their alumni and students. Right. So they've sort of signed up through Pushfar as well. So, but yeah, generally speaking, we've got people in retail, we've got people in the property sector, clients in retail, property, finance, technology, real mix. Sciences, It does vary massively, which, as I say, is great for us. And
well, yeah, completely. As you say, you want that broad spread, and the whole point is mentoring is sector agnostic at the end of the day, as is HR, really. And I mean, I spend my life, you know, kind of quietly screaming at hiring clients to say, you know, it shouldn't matter too much if your next HR director comes from a direct competitor. You know, anything is sometimes it's better that they don't. So, no, I agree. Okay,
exactly.
So I suppose one of the things that must have guided how all this was built and worked was probably some poor experiences of mentoring programs. Did you do your research there? Or what are the risks of, you know, bad mentoring effectively?
I think the first one is that it doesn't work. You've wasted time, you've wasted money setting up a scheme. People have spent time matching people, and that's partly because of the engagement. As I say, it's the engagement. People, you know, there is a feeling that once you've set up a scheme and got people matched, then that's it. They're going to take care of it all on their own. It just doesn't really happen because people are busy. And whilst there are lots of benefits to mentoring, and even the mentors and the mentees can see that and realize that, other things get in the way. They don't have the reminders they need in place. So I think the first thing is that you've wasted time and money in individuals setting up and managing a scheme manually through an Excel spreadsheet, and it just doesn't then take off. The second thing we've seen is that there hasn't been an education around what mentoring is. So actually people end up standing around having a coffee and a chat about what they did over the weekend and what they're doing next week. But that's not really what mentoring is about. It's about setting those actionable goals, looking about what's coming ahead in the next month, what you want to be achieving in the next month, what you've done in the last month, what your objectives are. But actually without that education piece, it does just end up becoming a sort of social network, as it were, for individuals to then find a mentor that they can end up going to the pub with, sort of thing, which is at one extreme of the spectrum, I suppose. But so I think the things that go wrong or have gone wrong in the past is there isn't enough investment in engagement or promoting the scheme in the first place. And the way you can change that, or two ways you can change that. First is with Pushfar's technology, of course, but the second is getting the buy-in from senior leadership and making sure that they are visibly mentoring and or being mentored by people. You've got reverse mentoring now. So some organizations, there are CEOs being mentored by recent graduates on the graduate scheme or apprentices, because actually they can transfer knowledge the other way, and they can talk about industry trends and what happened at university and technologies that are coming into play that might be able to help the organization, and also how they feel about being in that organization for the first 6 months. And actually, you know, a CEO of an organization might not necessarily understand that. So the reverse mentoring piece is a really nice one. But you've got to have that buy-in from the top in order for a mentoring scheme to work properly. Otherwise it just will sort of fall flat. And yeah, as I say, the second piece, the education piece, making sure people understand what mentoring is. It's the act of one individual sharing their knowledge, skills, and experience with another to help them to progress. It's not about having a conversation about the weekend, and making sure that people understand, what the introductory meeting should cover off, how often you should be meeting, setting the goals effectively, keeping track of goals. All of those things come into play when it comes to mentoring, and also winding down the mentoring relationship at the end, not letting it drift, but actually how you wind it down effectively.
Okay. Hey, I'll pick up on that. I mean, the reverse mentoring piece. That must, in this current era, that must be more interesting than ever, because I can imagine, as you say, the technology piece, the cultural piece, the engagement piece, the completely different approach to employment in many areas. It's got to be eye-opening for some of these CEOs and MDs to learn from some of their recent hires. That's a great piece of work there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, reverse mentoring is fantastic. It comes into play in lots of areas. It's that education piece for more junior and senior employees in terms of that knowledge transfer, but also on the diversity and inclusion piece as well. We're seeing it more and more. So actually, diversity and inclusion groups, it's spreading awareness about the challenges that they might be facing, and actually, how you can make everyone aware of certain things. So if taking the example of an international organization, if there's if someone is being, if a CEO requests that an individual spend 6 months working in one of the offices in the Middle East, for example, actually that employee may well be gay, and they may face prejudice over there because it's obviously illegal still to be gay in those countries. But actually, the CEO might not even have thought about that. And actually, the way you tackle that is reverse mentoring and making sure that people are aware of certain challenges that individuals may face. And that reverse mentoring piece is really powerful in that side of things.
Oh, definitely. No, thanks. Well, hey, look, I appreciate you being really open about how it all works and some of the numbers there you've given us, as well as the process. So what's next? I suppose both for the organisation, what are your organisational goals within reason, and for you as an individual as well? What does the future look like for Ed Johnson at Pushfar?
Yeah, so we recently redesigned or redeveloped our branding book, I suppose, and one of our mission statement is to make mentoring more accessible and effective for everyone, everywhere. So for us, our main objective is that we want to get millions of people onto pushfar.com. We want to get millions of individuals involved with mentoring and making sure that it's working, making sure that people are scheduling meetings, they're setting goals, they're finding it useful, they're seeing the real benefits that mentoring has. So we've got lots of tech development on our roadmap. We've got lots of new features we want to roll out. We've recently released a feature where people can request a one-time meeting. So actually, rather than requesting and committing to a longer-term mentoring relationship, it might be that you just want to have a one-off meeting to sort of see how it goes, and then you can extend it to a more longer-term mentoring commitment. Okay. And so we're constantly releasing new features to sort of help with the engagement piece. For the business itself, it's about, as I say, continually growing, continually getting more individuals and organizations to see how mentoring can be of massive impact. And that I suppose is my goal as well. That's what I get a real buzz out of talking about mentoring and the benefits of it. And it's really exciting to see individuals being helped through the platform. So I want that to continue happening as we grow.
Definitely. Oh, fantastic. So, I mean, we've discussed my audience before. I'm obviously connected to, in excess of about 10,000 HR leaders on LinkedIn now. So hopefully a significant proportion of those guys will see this. What if there are people there that are looking to mentor or looking to be mentored? What's the best course of action for them now? How do they just go to the website? You tell me.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you're looking to get involved with mentoring itself, head to pushfar.com. You can create your account free and enter a few details and find relevant mentors or mentees. It's probably worth signing up as both a mentor and a mentee. I'm a firm believer in the fact that 99% of people have something they can give back and offer to other people and share their experience. And at the same time, if you're looking for a mentor, of course, sign up as a mentee. And then if you're looking at it from an organizational perspective and how you think mentoring could help with talent retention, engagement, training, learning, all of those things, then we would love to have a conversation. So again, head to pushfar.com, click on the business link at the top, and we'll have we can schedule in a call and just talk about how mentoring is going at your current organization. I'm always happy to just have a conversation. It doesn't have to be tech-led. It doesn't have to be a demo of our platform. It can just be, here are some things that our clients have done with or without our technology, the things that you might want to try.
Fantastic. Oh, that's brilliant. Well, I'm going to have a good look, because I need all the help I can get with how to run a podcast, amongst other things. I probably should have looked at that before I started this. But hey, I know you're really busy, and I know you've got a busy day in the office there. No one's walked past carrying furniture yet, which is what I wondered if was going to happen.
They haven't. No, there'll be people in the kitchen over there. But
you've been very focused. I'm impressed. But hey, look, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for giving me the time today. And I'm hoping that a lot of HR professionals out there will see this who maybe aren't necessarily aware of Pushfar as yet, and can think about it, how it can help both them as individuals and possibly their organisation. So best of luck with the business, and who knows, we could be talking again in a year, talking about how you've quadrupled in size and all sorts, and you're looking for more people for the company. So
absolutely.
I really appreciate your time. Obviously, when I publish this, I'll copy you in on the LinkedIn link. So if anyone wants to reach out to Ed directly, I'm sure that's a great way of doing it.
Super.
But thanks a lot. Cheers, Ed.